For those who are coming on YouTube, I apologize. We're just you're gonna have to. We're just catching you up on some of this stuff having to do with precepts. Give me a second, y'all need to check my time.
It's 8:13.
Okay, so 45 minutes. All right, so sorry about that. So we got about 45 more minutes left. So those who are joining us on YouTube, I apologize. You missed the first 15. But we're talking about precepts, concepts, and concepts, and really we just did review somewhat. We talked about, the for those who are going to be listening to this later on, we already, and just reminder for those who are on right now. So we talked about your beliefs are no bigger than the system they come out of. Your system is no bigger than what your beliefs come out of. We spoke about these things as far as remembered are from from culture to habits. So number one, your culture affects number two, your beliefs, which affects number three, your emotions, which helps number four, your feelings, which leads you number five, your mood, which leads you to number six, your effort or energy, and number seven, your effort or energy is going to affect your habits, right? Then we said, now we got on this. Sept is an idea. We don't use this term that often anymore. We don't use this word. Barely anybody uses this word at all. But sept is an idea. Precept is something that comes before the idea. Concept actually means to be one with the idea, right? So you said, I think language of your understanding could be part of the precept. He's not a white man's God. Yeah, people are arguing weird things, but once again, that's coming from the precept, right? The white man's God. Okay, well then, when did he become white? Right, and why do you believe he's white? Do you believe he's white because he is white? Do you believe that Elohim or his people are white because they are white? Or do you believe that because somebody changed your precept? When they changed your precept, they changed your sept. Or really, they changed your sept when they took you to another precept. You see that? Right, so even that is even somebody who comes on here, oh, black man, why are you teaching the white man's word? Well, that's your sept, but your sept is coming out of a white man's precept. So who's in the more dangerous or precarious situation? The person who comprehends the original precept, or the person that goes to the white man's sept or precept to get your septs out of, to get your concepts out of, to become one with them and run with them, right? Like you gotta be careful about that. So a lot of people are out here with terrible belief systems because your septs are off, your ideas are off, because your precept, the place that governs you, is off, right? Really, when we're talking about this precept, it's something that governs you, right? So a lot of us are being governed by something. Wow, this is why I'm governed by Radach Shemayim, or the kingdom of heaven, because I'm governed by it because it's got a concept that is eternal, or I'm sorry, it has a precept rather that comes from an eternal place. And my septs, therefore, are dealing with things I can have concepts out of or become one with these ideas, because I am able to be in a place where no matter what you take me across, if you take me across kingdom law, natural law, universal law, the laws of Ma'at, right? For that person who's speaking, they probably like the laws of Ma'at, right? Or the 42 negative confessions or 42 confessions of Ma'at, whatever you want to go to. If you want to go to admiralty law, law of equity, if you want to talk about common law, if you want to talk about the law first mentioned, all these laws, right? Universal law. If you want to talk about uniform commercial codes, even, and go into that UCC 1-308, UCC 6611, right? If you want to talk about freeing yourself from W2, W4, W9, 1099, and go into W-8BEN and all this stuff, right? It's because that I have a precept, a belief that a system that's set up, that's eternal, that's one that allows me to go into all these other laws that you want to talk about. My septs are solid because the precept I come out of is eternal, right? You see all that. That's a different mindset. Elohim created people of all colors. We're all equal in his eyes. He loves variety. Nobody's discussing the difference in that. That's not even part of the discussion. Thank you for the statement. That's actually an obvious statement. You said, why is Jesus hated and bashed by every religion in the entire world? Well, first of all, Jesus is not even who you should worry about being bashed, because that's somebody else's precept, right? Yashva, though, the concept, who is bashed more than anybody else, because even Christians will turn their fingers at people that believe in Yashva, the original name, and say, how dare you not say in the name of Jesus, right? But regardless of that, precept, right, is where you're talking about. and a precept that comes from you got to understand. You got to understand. Like, even a lot of people don't even understand the 1,260 days that are in the Bible. Really pointing to 1,260 years that take you all the way from Justinian and Theodora, and take you all the way to the Pope being killed off in the late 1700s and 1790s by Napoleon. Right? Like, people don't even look at the precepts of stuff. You just study random things. And so if you're not going to recognize those things, you see what I'm saying? We're asking questions that are, the precept is all wrong. So the steps, the ideas that we're talking about are all wrong. Then the concepts of things these ideas that we try to live by or become one with are difficult. Even like the person that's talking about now, God is good. What does the word God mean? The word God means good. The word good means God. Guten Tag, stuff like that. Now, when you say God is good, though, who is God? Accept is an idea, right? Who is God? Yes, we do have a YouTube page, hashtag Find Kofi. My name up here, hashtag Find KOFI. We're actually starting from scratch because they got rid of the last one when we started talking about World Health Organization stuff. They put it into the last channel. It wouldn't even let us have the right to appeal it. They did everything they could to make sure we couldn't do it. Okay, but what is God? Who is God? Quick question, right? I just want to. We're gonna deal with this. A lot of you already know where we're going with this, right? But who is God? I don't know who is God. No, who is God? See what I'm saying? I want you to tell me, since I don't know who God is. I want you, because you don't know what the precept is. You have a sept that you become one with. You have an idea that you become one with. But question, who is God? The Most High God. No. Who is God? You see what I'm saying? You're giving me titles, you're giving me stuff you read in the book. I want you to tell me who is God. You are God. Okay, I mean, that's somebody being more honest. I wouldn't agree with that. And if you are somebody who says you are God, you actually should be saying like you're a Netjer, or you're a Niger, or you are energy, or something like that, because they didn't use the term God. God, G-O-D, is a deity. So if you believe in the Bible, right, and then you're somebody saying the Most High God, biblically speaking, or kind of sort of Afrocentric people might say it, or even dealing with I guess I'd say even some Muslims might say the Most High God. God is a deity, right? But Elohim is different than God. God is a different deity. God is a Germanic deity from somebody else's mindset, right? That's why somebody might say God is the Son, because God can change it to whatever they want it to change into. God is a different deity. Elohim is somebody else. So if you tell me about God, right, the sept of God, a lot of you are telling me stuff that's going to be tied to a whole different deity than the one that you say you believe in. If you believe in the Bible originally didn't say anything about God. And don't tell me, oh, it's just a language thing. No. Baal means something different than God, and God means something different than Baal, and God means something different than Netjer. Kemetic people or Egyptian people did not have gods; they had Netjers. It's a different mentality, different thought process. Elohim is a different thought process than God, which is why you can have Zeus and Jupiter and Herodotus and Hermes and well, Hermes, I don't know if you want to go God, but you can have Prometheus and his brother, and you can have Gaia, and you can have all these different people, right? Because that's the sept. So when you start talking about God, that's why you have all these different things that come into be. You can worship God, and you can have a Christmas tree, because God can phase into whatever you need him to phase into, because that's your precept. The environment that sept of God came out of says you can do whatever you want, right? So you don't have to follow law, right? When you follow God, Allah, even if you know about Allah, people who are actually of Allah, the people of Allah, and not just the followers, but even the children of Allah physically, if you want to go there, they would be our cousins. I guess technically not even our cousins. I keep saying cousins. They would be our brothers, right? Ishmael, Isaac. So anybody who has that understands that Allah and Elohim come from the same root, because we're the same people. So somebody who would come on and argue about Allah being better than Elohim is somebody who doesn't comprehend that we're the same. Okay, either way, God is a deity. No matter where you want to talk about where it derived from, it's a deity. He is a deity. She is a deity. Whatever you want that God to be is a deity, is the point. Right? And I don't worship God, I worship Elohim. This is stuff that, like, by the way, I had to stand up for and be willing to be kicked out of certain places to never be able to speak again. Because they're like, how dare you say that you don't worship God? I don't worship God because God is not my deity. That's not the person who is my standard. That's not the person who inspired the books that I read out of. Elohim is not my God. Elohim is my Elohim. Yahweh is my Elohim. Elohim is not God. God is a deity. Elohim is a title of another deity. And so I will give Elohim his worship. I will not have any false Elohims. I don't worship any other Elohims. I only worship one. And that deity, God, can go ahead and stay over there. Now, as a sovereign, you have the right to worship whatever you want. But this, once again, comes from your belief system, your precepts. What environment are you getting it out of? You know why it becomes hard for people, right? People have to just start yelling or saying you're stupid or saying you don't know this or saying this and that or whatever. It's because of your precepts. If you know what your precepts are, then you're great. You're great to go. Like, you don't have to worry about certain things. Now, somebody asked about evolution. Once again, my stance on evolution is not my stance even. It's looking at contextual facts. I don't look at context by itself. I don't look at facts by itself. I look at contextual facts. And so in contextual facts, when we're dealing with contextual facts, in dealing with contextual facts, you say God isn't he or she. I didn't say that. Or, well, first of all, Elohim there's neither male nor female in heaven. We already know that in our culture. That's our standard. That's the standard we live up to. So you're not showing us. I said he or she, depending on what other people call him. When we say even he in Avda, or what you call Hebrew, he does not even mean male or female. That's something that somebody else had to give you, because in their culture, men have to be better than women, which is why people always talk about the Bible has a lot of chauvinism in it, but the system of chauvinism is not something that appears in our Bible. Matter of fact, Deborah was such a powerful judge that other judges who were men would not go into battle and lead people. Generals would not go into battle unless she showed up. So if you know about who we are and who our people are, right, in our customs and our culture, you would understand we're really even North African people, and see what people in Africa did with our women and how our women were respected. You know that a lot of this mess that people give you, their seps and these concepts they become one with, don't have anything to do with who we are, right? But when you talk about evolution, even, once again, here's the precept. People get mad at me. Before I was even in the kingdom, before I even was saying I'm going to give my life to Yah, before I was even going to be obedient, while I was agnostic and all this stuff, and I was out there, I had a problem with evolution because of this. I understood precepts. So if somebody tells me evolution, I need to understand, where did you get this from? What was the point of this? And all I have to do to figure that out is look at the book, right? All I need to do is look at the book. All I need to do is look at the book, and thank you for the compliment. All I need to do was look at the book. Right, itself. What is the name of the book? Right, the book, the theory of evolution. First of all, what is a theory? See, because a lot of people are going off of the sept of evolution, and they become one with that sept, and they say, oh, evolution is real, and this and that, and I evolve in this manner, and you evolve, and this game evolves, and video games evolve. They use this term, right? Question: do you know where that idea came from? Do you even know who the uncle of Darwin is? Who has a problem with black people? Now, why would I say that and doesn't believe in God? Now, why does that matter? Because, first of all, Charles Darwin, the only degree Charles Darwin ever got is in what? He's actually got his degree in theology. He's a minister. He got his degree to become a minister. That's the only thing. And he paid. His family paid. He wasn't a great student. Back then, when you got degrees, just like today for a lot of people, but back then when you got degrees, you didn't work hard and do all this stuff. Your family paid a fee. You went to school for maybe about a year or so, and you can get your bachelor's. That's what happened with Darwin, right? You can call it whatever you want. I'm just telling you what it is. You're saying it's pseudoscience. I'm telling you this stuff you can look up. Darwin's uncle hated black people, hated the idea of any God, if we're going to use that term. Darwin himself, his family, were preachers and stuff, and he actually worshipped the moon. Darwin was actually literally a lunatic. Not saying he was crazy. People call lunatics crazy now, but lunatics were a group of people who got together once a month under the full moon and worshipped the goddess of the moon, Ishtar, Easter, where you get that from. That's what Charles Darwin was part of. We know this for a fact. We also know for a fact what Charles Darwin wrote for himself. And what did he write for himself? Charles Darwin wrote the book. The book is called what? The Theory. Is a theory a fact? First off, the answer is no. A theory is not a fact. The theory is something that helps us to get from point A to point C. The point, we don't know what point B is, so we go from point A to point C. Just like gravity is a theory. Now people would say, oh my goodness, here comes somebody that believes gravity is not real. What holds you? No. Look it up. The Theory of Gravity by Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton himself didn't even want to be attached to it at the end of his life. It was disproven by Albert Einstein, who gave us a theory of relativity. That's why the theory of relativity was so mind-blowing, because it was actually something that helped us to fill in the blanks for what the theory of gravity didn't give us. And then even his theory was disproven, right? It's a theory. We don't understand how stuff works. We don't want to simply just say everything is in Yah's hands, right? In the Most High's hands. So we say, okay, well, there's this thing, and there's that thing, and then there's this, and then there's dark matter, and then there's dark energy, and then there's, you call it pseudoscience. I'm just saying these are the scientific things you guys talk about, right? Even though you want to say when I say it, it's not really science, right? But what about, this is stuff that you guys say, right? What about when you guys say that there's intelligent design, meaning that life designed itself, even though that means life had to create itself, because in order to create itself, it had to be nothing. You agree that it was nothing, or that it was in something the size of a period or even smaller, somehow exploded, somehow got away from each other, and while going away from each other at a rate that it could never get close to and could never slow down from, because space doesn't have any gravity or anything, right? In the beginning, at least, right? It has nothing to be able to hold it together. So that's your theory, right? You live by a theory. Same thing. The theory of evolution. It's not the fact of evolution. He said, I came to this theory. I went to the Galapagos Islands. I saw one bird that was like this with its beak, one bird like this, one bird like this, one bird like this, one bird like this. And I just simply said, hey, they had to have came from each other. There's nothing scientifically that backs it up. It's a theory, right? And so the theory of evolution, right? Then the next part of the definition is the origin of species. So wait a minute. It's the theory of evolution. He's theorizing that this is what happened. But then he says this is how all things, the origin of all things. Well, hold on. If it's a theory, how do you know that it's the origin of all things? But let's just go with it. You're saying you're theorizing. So you're not saying it's got to be a fact. You're saying this is what I believe happened. Charles Darwin had faith. The same Charles Darwin that worshipped the goddess of the moon, a lunatic. Not saying he was crazy. He literally worshipped the moon. Right? People thought that lunatics were crazy. That's why he's labeled as crazy. But Charles Darwin was a lunatic. He worshipped the moon. So the same one that had faith in the deity, the same one that got his degree in being a preacher, putting these sermons together or these writings together, comes in and is paid by high society, including Roman Catholic Church and other people, to write this book on the theory of evolution, the origin of species. But then question, what's the next part of the title? Right? What's the next part of the title? Like, let's not just stop there. What's the next part of the title? Hey, babe, my wife is on the Honorable Bloom and Flourish. Thanks for being on. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. And we give all honor to the Most High once again for her and her presence. Right? What's the next part of the title? Let's not just stop at the theory of evolution, the origin of species. Once again, I want to give you the precept. Right? Right? Not fate. Yeah, not favorite, even though favorite kind of means the same thing, but it's still nice. Favored, right? He says the next part of it is it's also the struggle for survival for favored races. That's what the book is called. The Theory of Evolution, the Origin of Species, the struggle for survival for favored or of favored races. Think about that. If you want to learn about Charles Darwin's religion, just start studying the moon. You do it every year when it's Easter time. That's where the eggs and stuff come from. That's worship of the moon goddess. That's why I don't worry about Easter, right? Passover is different than Easter. Ishtar is about the goddess this woman who said she came from the moon, had sex with her own son, had a child supposedly by her own son, and said that it was him as he became the sun god when he died before she did. All right, like that's what that is. So if you want to worship that, that's pretty easy. Just wait for Easter. That's pretty easy. Buy your bunnies, wear your Easter colors. Show up to a lot of churches. They'll be worshiping that same goddess, right? It's like clockwork. But what we're talking about here. So when you're talking about the theory of evolution, the origin of species, right? My wife said people can't disprove Yah made everything, right? They're trying to, right? So when we're talking about this book, though, when somebody asks about this, that's once again your belief system, your precept that you have. People don't study the precept. That's the problem. If I could just say it like that, people don't study the precept. If you want to know about belief system, you got to know where the belief came out of. You got to know the system that came out of. People don't study the precepts. So when you're dealing with the precept, Charles Darwin, whose uncle hated black people and God, his family, who worshiped the moon goddess but preached God in church, he who grew up in that situation with people who hated black people, preached in church, worshiped the moon goddess at the same time, and then part of him hated the concept of God at all. Then he writes a book based off of his what? His precepts. And he has accepted an idea, right? Even though he's supposed to be a preacher, he has this idea, then he goes on this island, right? And probably was having, well, I won't even go into that because that doesn't even need to concern us with this argument, right? He basically is traveling around the world, lands on this island, says, I see some birds that are in different places, and says, you know what? This could actually help us to prove, if I can put this theory together, it can prove that there's a struggle for survival, that the struggle for survival races is something that's necessary. Remember, at this time, you have manifest destiny. What does manifest destiny mean? Manifest destiny, this is the precept, manifest destiny. That's what Rudyard Kipling, who wrote the Jungle Book, he told the United States, please keep up manifest destiny, right? People don't even understand what this stuff is. Manifest destiny literally means that it is the white man's burden, which is another thing as well. There was actually a pamphlet that people started to read and use as canon called The White Man's Burden, which is the white man's burden from the Most High, or well, they wouldn't say the Most High. They said the white man's burden from God to be able to make sure that everybody on the planet looks and acts like them. And manifest destiny says that it is the destiny of the white man to make sure that everybody manifests into belonging to them and being under their rule, right? So he, in this same time period, while this is going on, being raised in this, Charles Darwin writes a book to make sure that the idea of manifest destiny is still around, that it is a struggle for survival for favored races, and that white people therefore have evolved from better animals. Go look it up in the book. I'm not making it up. And then black people have evolved from other places. He gave you all these examples of animals to make sure that at the end, his goal was for you to understand that, hey, if you do something, if Leopold comes right behind that, learning under the same precept, and he decides, Leopold the first, the second, and the third, decide they're going to wipe out black people in the Congo, I mean, hey, it's the struggle for survival. we came out of the best stock. That's what he taught. So if that's the idea, and we teach everybody to be one with that idea, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you're supposed to do. So if you're saying this is pseudoscience, you can say that's pseudoscience all day, love, but at the end of the day, you look this up from, like, tell me I'm wrong. Like, see, if it's pseudoscience, tell me all you want that it's pseudoscience, but tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me that Charles Darwin didn't write that as the title of the book. Tell me that the white man's burden is not real. Tell me that manifest destiny is not real. Tell me that Leopold and others didn't look back at. Matter of fact, check out Leopold's quotes. Check out Hitler's quotes. Check out Stalin's quotes when they said that the reason they did to people what they did, right? So that's not just only black people, that's Jewish people too, right? That's other Russian people too. They said that they thought it was acceptable to do what they did because they read about these things as precept that was set up by Darwinism, and they said therefore it was okay for them to kill off millions of people and nobody even care or blink an eye, or them not even blink an eye, because these weren't really people on their level because they had not evolved right, and they could do with them what they could do to animals, even though some people don't even think you should do that to animals. I'm sorry, babe, you were going to say something? Oh, I mean, I guess, okay. So these are the things, right? So you got to understand these things. Like, you're coming from a place, belief system wise. What is your belief system? Precepts, concepts, right? Culture, giving way to beliefs, giving way to emotion, giving way to feelings, giving way to mood. Oh, their science. Okay, I'm sorry. Their science is pseudoscience. I apologize. I can't catch all the comments, so I apologize. Right? Ad hominem. You are attacking the person, not countering the idea. So, okay. So was it ad hominem for, may I ask a question then? Was it ad hominem for Charles Darwin to say that there was a struggle for survived races and that his race was greater than mine because of the color of their skin? And therefore, is that something that we should go ahead and use? I teach apologetics, so I'm good with those terms, right? So if we're going to talk about ad hominem, is that okay? Is it Dunning-Kruger effect that somebody would argue on behalf of something that is ad hominem and then try to use it as a straw man, or use it as something to be able to finesse somebody, or try to, what's the real term I'm looking for? Basically where you're trying to say, call me the same thing that you won't even call the person that you're defending right now. Apologetically, that's not a sound argument. I think that we should be careful with that. The person Darwin is the person who was wrong about writing rape, but that doesn't change science around his theory. What is the science around his theory? His theory is that I saw some birds that had different beaks, and I said that they came one from another. You know, they did that. That's what they did with the apes too. They literally lined up apes' bones together, and they said this ape is bigger than this ape, which is bigger than this ape, which is bigger than this ape, and they theorized, therefore, this ape must be older, and this ape must have came from this one, which came from this one, and then they said, therefore, this is how the years of how old they are. That's how they actually originally came up. So these things you still use today. That's why when you see your lines on your stuff, right? This is why precepts and concepts and steps are important. When you go to the museums even, right, or when you read your books, right, they have some of these things where they, I'm going to use circles, or whatever, stick figures. I'm not really great at drawing, but when you see these different things and they tell you this one came from this one, and this one came from that one, and this one came from this one, and all this, right? They write out these long things for you, right? When you look at them, one of the things that a lot of people aren't even honest about, but they'll be honest with you about, is this. You look at them and you're going to see a lot of dotted lines. What do I even mean by that when you're going to see a lot of dotted lines? You're going to see something like this. You're going to see this, and then they're going to tell you like this, but then they're going to say, well, there's a dotted line here, therefore there's a dotted line here. There's a dotted line here, but maybe we'll give, we're not even sure, maybe, and might even do something where it's like a straight line, dotted line. What does all that even mean? What they're saying to you is, hey, we're telling you that this animal definitely came from this animal, but this one is kind of a theory. We don't know. Right? They're being honest with you. They're telling you, we don't really know what's going on here. And we don't really know what's going on here. And we don't really know, but with this one, we're pretty sure. And then this one, we kind of sure about, this one we're kind of not sure. So when I'm even looking at that, what you're telling me is it's a theory, and I'm not mad at it. Like, if that's your theory, that's your theory. That's what gets you from point B, or from point A to point C. That's your B. But don't tell me that I'm wrong for believing that there's somebody that could make up the heaven and the earth and just create it, and you're right, and my faith is okay. But then when you have faith in yours is science and mine is pseudoscience. I know the other person wasn't saying that this time, right? I'm just using that, right? Don't tell me that I'm off and I'm giving ad hominem, right? When you're allowed to say the same thing I'm allowed to say. Now, if it's not your standard, it's not your standard. We don't have to live by the same standard. The standard we should really live by is still honoring and treating each other as human beings, regardless of what that is. But if you ask me as far as belief system, I would say, well, shoot, if it's faith for you, then what's wrong with my faith? I think a lot of times too what's happening when ad hominem, I think honestly, the biggest ad hominem you could do as far as apologetics, when people are telling me that I'm providing ad hominem or whatever, I think the biggest thing is just assume that I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I think that's the biggest disservice that we do with one another. And so why does science prove change so often if it is true? Yeah.
Why does it change so often?
If it is true, yeah.
Something that's true shouldn't change so often.
You said in science, a theory means it's based on scientific evidence. Okay, it can be based on scientific evidence. That doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
I didn't say it's not based on scientific evidence. I didn't say there's no context. I just simply said just because it's based on scientific evidence doesn't mean that it's true. A theory is still a theory. It's not a scientific fact. If they tell you it's a science, like, for example, I wouldn't tell you that a woman can give birth to a child is a scientific theory. That would be a scientific fact. There is no theory that a woman gives birth to a child. That's not a theory. That's a fact. So if they tell you straight up this is a scientific theory, they're saying, hey, it might even be some scientific evidence that makes us believe that we're dead on right about this. And they could be dead on right about that. However, a theory is telling you we don't know for sure. So if they don't know for sure, what comes in to fill in the gaps of what you don't know for sure? Until you can prove it, it's something called faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. A lot of people are hoping that this is true. Right? And therefore, if you hope that it's true, you put your faith, it becomes your faith. Your faith manifests out of what you hope for. Is that probably a dumb question? What's the difference between the Quran and the Torah, if any? Not a dumb question. Thank you for asking. I mean, the Quran is basically supposed to be from Muhammad, and it's supposed to be a correction of what the Bible is. And even the Quran is taken a lot out of context because a lot of people don't recognize that the Quran has been changed as far as the meaning, just like the Bible, and just like science, right? Just like a lot of stuff that Darwin used. Like, for example, Darwin, people love to talk about, what is it that they always say? It's survival of the fittest. Do you know that when Darwin said survival of the fittest, he wasn't talking about, oh, you just weak, so you got to go? It's somewhat of that, but Darwin was also talking about, hey, animals need to come together. He was like, so deer, they'll come together in a group to survive, and that's what makes them fit. So sometimes you might need to come together, right? So people mess up even what Darwin says, right? But the Quran is something that's been messed up because there's a lot of cultures who took the Quran and said, oh, well, we want it to mean this, or we want it to mean we can hit our wives, or we want it to mean that you have to wear a hijab, or, you know, different things like that, right? That it doesn't, he never even said. Matter of fact, one of the interesting things about the Quran that you read is it doesn't really say often, Muhammad said this, Muhammad said that. It just says he did this, he did that. So to actually say that Muhammad did these things or said these things, usually they're lying on the Quran because he never said it. He might have done something, but he never even said, you got to do this. Then there's other books that actually go with the Quran that you're supposed to read for with people who lived with him that will tell you this is what he actually did say. This is how he actually wanted you to live, including even his wife, his youngest wife, who was the one that basically kept up his word the most after he died. People will go to her to say, what did he actually mean? But people don't do that anymore because they just want to do what they want to do. So, but the Quran is supposed to be this correction that comes by, I want to say, what, 500? Is it 500 years after Christ? 600 years, somewhere around there, with Muhammad. I could be wrong with that, but somewhere around there. The Torah, or the Bible, the Torah just means the guide, the word. Now, a lot of people want to say the Bible. The Bible is something where they have mistreated it, mismanaged and stuff, and the Bible just literally means Biblios. There was an island named Biblios where they started putting books together in the manner that we read them now, and so that's why we call it the Holy Bible, the whole Bible, or the mature Bible, or the set-apart Bible. But really the Torah, the guide, is something that's anything that's the word of Yah. So if you're living the word of Yah, then you're living Torah. If you're speaking the word of Yah, you're speaking Torah. It must match the law, it must match the guide, it must match the principles. So that's pretty simple as far as belief system. Talking fast is a tactic people use to often confuse people. Well, what are you confused about? It doesn't seem like everybody else is confused. It seems like you might be confused. Am I talking too fast for you? If so, you know, you don't have to be on here. Or if your whole goal in saying that is simply, I don't believe what you have to say. And hello to you, by the way. That's how actual human beings interact. So hello, welcome. Peace be unto you, even if you don't like me. And if you do think that I'm wrong, that's okay. Learn about my system of belief first, and then see if there's anything tangible that you can chew up the meat and spit out the bones. If you feel like you don't want to eat at the table, you don't have to be in the house, but you're welcome. Oh, it was great. Takap was great. Matter of fact, we've done multiple Hebrew things on here. We Hebrew things on our calendar, right? This year as a community, we started off, well, on Zoom, we've done 3 together, right? We did, and we mentioned some others along the way, but we've done 3 together. We did Passover to start off, right? Our calendar. Then we did Shavuot right after that. And we just finished with, actually kind of, well, we did 4, I guess, because then after that we did the Feast of Trumpets, and then after that we did our Holy Convocation, which you're supposed to do 10 days after, technically 9 days, but we did it 10 days because of the Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. But we made sure we started talking about it and preaching on it and speaking on it on the Thursday. So yeah, so that was great. How was yours? Said science came from Egypt? Okay. I would say that there's, you know, if you know about Kemet, then you know that before Kemet there was Cush. And Cush is the big brother of Kemet, and they were already building pyramids and making scientific discovery. But either way, if that's your belief system, that's fine. You said you're not talking too fast, however you don't understand. Which part don't you understand? And I'm trying to talk fast because obviously this is a lot to probably get in a little bit of time, right? But once again, you can always go back to the YouTube recording. We have a YouTube channel. All you got to look up is #FindKofi. That's the actual name of the YouTube channel. You can also go on any other platforms that we're on, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, and look up #FindKofi. You'll be able to find these things and find recordings of different things. You said the Bible isn't the start of history. Okay, what's the start of history? What you say? The Bible is the start of the story. His story is different than the story. But once again, that's my belief system. So you're about his story, and that was that's your precept. Your precept is his story, right? I guess we could technically say both of our precepts are his story, right? Problem with it is, right, his story, or if we put another S there, right, his story, you know. Problem with that is that, you know, your his is man, and then you try to accuse me of the same thing, but my his is not. Some people's his is even God. Some people's his is Netchers, right? Some people's his is whomever you want to put in there. My his happens to be the Most High. All right, and you have faith. We all got faith in, you know, I guess it depends on which one, you know, you have faith in. So, you know, that's our story. That's what we're sticking to. Yes. Paleo Hebrew, yes, I did. We actually have a course on it where we teach. So, yes. Do you believe in the life of Jesus Christ happened? You're asking, do I believe Christ is real? I believe Yeshua HaMashiach actually happened. And I believe that his name was not Jesus. And I believe that he is who he says he is. He lived how he said he lived. And what is written about him, not just in the Bible, but by other faiths, including in the ancient Chinese religion, including in the ancient Indian religion, including in African religions that still exist to this day that we wouldn't even call Christian. I would say yes. I have no problem. Remember, I don't know if you were on when I said this earlier, but I was agnostic for a part of my life. So to be like, hey, this is, you were just born and raised and blah blah, like that's not my mentality. This had to make sense. It had to be, stop being mystical and had to become practical. And so that's what I look at it. Native Americans also, I'm part Cherokee, right? Cherokee's original name literally means the people of Yah. Our cousins, the Choctaw people, their original name literally means the people of the skirts. You know, like it's not actually, and you know that you look in Cherokee Nation and look up stuff that they've dug up where it has Paleo Hebrew all over it. Same people who are the first slaves. We keep forgetting the first slaves in America were not black people from Africa. They were black people from what we now call the Americas. And these black people, when they got free, guess what they did? They started building churches, or what we call churches. And when they did, you can see some of the churches that they wrote in Paleo Hebrew. Why would they do that if it wasn't part of their culture? Look up Oluwada Equiano, right? Belief system time, right? I've talked about this name plenty of times before, but let me mention them one more again. Oluwada, right? Even the ach at the end, right? If my people are called by my name, Oluwada, he never even let go of that name. Equiano, and look up his biography. Matter of fact, look up his autobiography. That means he wrote about himself, right? And a lot of people say you shouldn't read autobiographies because autobiographies, people usually speak more highly of themselves than they should or whatever, which is always an odd concept to me. But read his autobiography. That means he wrote it himself. This is a former slave that was taken from what we would call Hebrew lands. A lot of people don't know about Negro land and stuff like that. So if you know about Negro land, you know what I'm talking about. It's taken from Hebrew lands as a young prince at 11 years old. Came over as a slave. Worked his butt off as a sailor, as a slave, but as a sailor. Bought his own freedom at 20 years old. Ended up having his own land, living his own life. Wrote a book about his life. And in the book, he talks about how he started hearing, he always heard people talk about reading his Bible. So one day he's like, you know what, let me go get a Bible and read it. He reads the Bible. He said, wait a minute, all the customs and cultures and tradition things, they remind me of home. I don't really remember too much because I was taken as a slave, but I do remember this and I do remember that. He's like, and we don't mix the honey with the milk, and we don't do this, and we do the sacrifice stuff still a little bit. Or if we, you know, we do have this certain ceremony. He was like, you know, wait a minute. He's like, I'm an Israelite. Like, this is a slave. Telling you. When people say we just making this stuff up, this is a slave belief system. I didn't just come to this randomly, right? Like, I look back to see, like, a system. I went back to somebody who was a slave at the time, bought his freedom. So when people say, don't listen to victims and listen to victors, I was like, okay, let me listen to one of these victors they keep trying to describe, even though they don't know you don't want to be a victor by definition. But they're like, let me look at one of these victors they keep talking about. Well, he overcame, owned his own land, went back and read, did all that stuff. And you know what he did? He said, I realized that I'm an Israelite. It's African tradition that they're talking about in the Bible. So words can be pronounced differently and have different variations, however, all are correct. I mean, if that's what you feel, I guess you're the type of person that says I can say the word I and I can be cussing you out. I mean, but I don't know how many people would go with that, but hey, whatever you want to do with that, that's fine. Oh. Ms. Mack says, I thought it must have happened at some point. Oh yeah, that eureka moment. Well, the Greek transliteration of the word name thing, once again, this comes from culture. This comes from your precepts, right? So people say that all the time, and you've been taught that, right? Problem with that is that this is the name of Yahshua, right? And we've talked about this ad nauseum, so forgive me, everybody, for having to go over this one more time if you've been with us, but let me just do this one more again, right? This is his name in Hebrew, all right? Once again, like, people are trying to, people once again are just like, oh, did you read about what somebody else told you? No, I studied what somebody else told me, right? Just like I'm assuming you have. So let's just get that out the way. We both have studied it, right? So problem with it is somebody is being dishonest between us two, or the person who wrote that is being dishonest. Here's the reason why. Because his name is spelled in, if we're going to pronounce it correctly, right? The way that we pronounce things today, we would say Yah, Shah, Vai. Now, some people will get into Yeshua or Yehoshua or all this stuff, right? But that's people trying to use the Greek term, just like the Aleph Bet came before the alphabet, right? The Aleph Bet came before the alphabet, right? So, okay, so you know this. So here's the problem, right? How can his name be Yahoshua or be Jesus, translate to Jesus? Because this is what Jesus is. Jesus is this. And I'm just going to write this out and straight up. Jesus is this. I-E-S-U-S or I-E-S-U. We know that, right? So we got a problem because you're saying that this translate, right? So we have a Yah, that's where they get the I-E. So I'll give you that, yeah, which is not Yah, but it's yeah. So Sha, Sa, kinda, the, maybe because some people started trying to change this to and doing W, W, V stuff. Then we got an I. Where is this? So we got something going on. Even if it's not quite, we don't know quite what it is, but we got something going on where something doesn't make sense. We got a sh sound. Maybe we got a yeah, so we can say Yah, kind of, sort of. But here's the deal. His name was written in the Bible. It tells us straight up what his name was written and why it was written the way it was written. In the Bible, right? We don't have to go outside. We talked about this when we talked about culture. Let the culture tell us what the Trinity is, right? In the Bible, it talks about his name being written like this already. We don't have to do too much stuff of trying to go through Black Hebrew Israelite, Christian, Catholic, whatever you want to call yourself. We can just literally look at what the Bible says. Even if we just read it in the English, by the way, right? You said Yod and Vav, what? Key transcript. Okay. So when we're talking about this, we can literally just look at what the Bible says. It says he's on the cross and his name was up there 3 times. One was in Hebrew, one was in Greek, one was in Latin. I already know, right? The Bible already says. No. Jesus didn't come from South America. Remember the people who use the word Jesus? Jesus, those are the people who speak Spanish. Where do the people who speak Spanish come from? The Spanish speaking people came from Europe. Right? So even they are still going back to their Latin roots, right? The 5 Latin love languages, they call them, right? Going back to their Latin roots, right? So you're not talking about the same language. You're talking about the same European conversation, right? Going back to Greco-Roman and alphabet coming from the Aleph Bet. Now here's the deal, though. It says that he wrote his name in Hebrew, had his name written in Greek, had his name written in Latin. First of all, because you had a bunch of people that were in Israel at the time, because it was a Roman province, that weren't even Israelites. Therefore, they didn't even speak Hebrew. A lot of Hebrews, just like a lot of black people today, not even speaking their actual language because they had been overtaken by somebody else. That's why they wanted Christ to come and overtake things, right? But then also, let's not forget, what was the experience of Pontius Pilate? What was the experience of Pontius Pilate when he met Yahshua HaMashiach? No. See, Joshua is closer. Joshua would be closer to Yahshua. That's what his name actually should be, because he's not only the second Adam, he's the second Joshua. But hear what I'm saying, right, before you go into that. Hear what I'm telling you, right? So we're agreeing on a lot of this stuff. I'm just telling you there's some context missing that we got to be honest about, right? Pontius Pilate, who was the governor, met up with Yahshua and could not find any fault in him, had a wife that had a dream about him and said, hey, let this man go, right? Just like what happened with Julius Caesar when he redid Carthage and all that, right? Had a dream. Same culture, had a dream, let this man go, right? Don't do what you're going to do to him. He's righteous. All this Pontius says, I can't find any fault. He says, I'll even give you Barabbas. Like, let Barabbas die instead. And they make Barabbas the scapegoat. They say, give us Barabbas. And he says, okay, I wash my hands clean and everything. And he demands, put up a sign. Now, what does this actually mean in Greek? What did this originally used to mean in Greek? He said, put this up. That's, see, exactly. So you're getting close to it, the Zeus thing. You're getting closer to it, right? This originally in Greek meant he, Zeus. He said, I know this man says that he is from another kingdom and that he has a kingdom that's greater than this place. He doesn't really come from here. He's in the flesh, but his father's from somewhere else. He said, I know this about him. In our culture, how do we describe that person? We could describe them as a demigod. Half man, he, half Zeus. Right? That's basically what he did. So he said, hey, put his name up there in Hebrew for all these people who are sitting up there. He said, put his name in Greek for us who speak Greek. Put his name up there in Latin. This is the authority I want people to see up there. I put nicknames here to describe who this actual person is. That's what happened. That's what he was saying he was, like a Hercules, right? Right? That's what he was basically saying he was. He's half man, he's half Zeus. That's all he was saying. So when you see... So Pontius Pilate was saying, in his culture, we look at him as half man, half Zeus. This is how I look at him. That's how I'm going to describe him. So this is who you guys are crucifying. I want the world to know, though, that in my eyes, in my estimation, you crucified half man, half Zeus. That doesn't mean that's what the culture, that doesn't mean that's what his name was. So if we're going to be honest about even the pronunciation of his name, I mean, we get kind of close. You know, you can kind of sort of people, so people have been slick trying to get it. But if we're honest about even the pronunciation of his name, at a certain point we got to say, well, why is the end of it completely different? And they had something comparable to this. If they had something comparable to this, heck, in the Greek language, they have 27 characters. They had 27 characters in their alphabet. We only have 22. They could have found an easy way to make sure that this happened. They already have in certain names in their language. Why didn't they do that? Because he wasn't saying what you're trying to say. He wasn't giving it. He wasn't trying to say this is just like a transliteration or whatever of his name. And here's another thing that people don't want to be honest about. Names are always the same. Like, can we just be honest about that? Names are always the same. My name is Kofi. All right? It means Friday born. If you were to come up to me in the Republican United States of America and say, hey, what's up, Friday born? I wouldn't answer you. Or I would look at you weird. You know why? Because my name is not Friday born. My name is Kofi. Call me my name. Right? If I were to go to the store and they were to look down at an ID and they would be like, oh, Kofi? You know, people do the Kofi, coffee, blah, blah. I would say Kofi. Why? Because my name, whether you know how to pronounce it or not, is still Kofi. His name doesn't change. His name is still the same. Right? Like, you know Flavius Josephus, but Flavius Josephus is not really Flavius Josephus' name. That's just what people try to call him. And a lot of people do that. Hey, manifest destiny, your type stuff. This is what we say your name is. This is what you're going to be. We came over here, you know, we're going to tell all the men to say that they landed in India, right? We're going to write it down and document it in a dictionary, in our diary, me and my son. We're going to tell you that we discovered India, when in reality, you know, we're close to India, and we actually know where India is, but we're going to tell people we discovered India, tell all the men to do the same thing, and from that moment on, for hundreds of years, people still going to call these people Indians, right? Same concept, but my name is what it is. So when somebody tries to tell me, it's right there in the Bible. Name was in Hebrew, nickname in Greek, nickname in Latin. Boom. And by the way, if you want to be honest about it, the same King James Bible I'm holding up in front of you right here, forgive it for being weathered. You know, I use my Bibles a lot, so it's a little weathered. Right, it's been through some things, but 1611 edition, the original edition of the King James Version of the Bible. When you look up, I don't know if it'll let me put it right up to there, whatever, but you look up his name, even in this Bible, right? And so we were talking about 1611. This is the 1600s, 17th century. So this isn't something that I just made up recently, right? They wrote this a long time ago, right? When you look up his name, I don't know if you'll be able to see it right here. I'm going to try and show it to those who are going to be watching on YouTube later too, right? When you look up his name, right here in verse 1, you're going to see I-E-S-U-S. That's even in English because they just literally made up the letter J. So when people start talking about this J and Y sound and all this stuff, you got to understand that Y to J ratio thing happened hundreds of years, thousands of years after we're even reading about what's going on here. It's a different mindset, but it's your belief system. It's what's in your belief system, right? If your belief system is these things, then your beliefs are no greater than the system you're coming out of. Your system is going to be no greater than the belief you come out of. If you come out of a system of self-hate, your belief is self-hate. If somebody told you, oh, you're slow, you're stupid, that's the boy who can't get it right. You never gonna get it right. You're gonna be just like your daddy. If that's the system that you come out of, that's your belief. And if you have a belief like that, then you'll never create a system or be part of a system that's greater. That's why we say don't be of the system. You need to be what? Out of it. Find a system that's bigger than the beliefs they have for you in this system. Straight up. Except but the concept is universal. Does the name really matter? The name is authority. When you sign your signature on something, right? Universal law, maritime law, constitutional law, natural law, etc. Right? You want to go to this place where name doesn't mean name is authority. That's what the word name means. So how are you going to go through things? I just said his name is Yashvai. That's who you guys call Jesus. Yashvai HaMashiach, or you call it Jesus the Christ. That's his name. Father is Abba. If you're talking about Yahweh, Yahweh, not Jehovah, Yahweh. If you're talking Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, that's her name. And yes, I said her because in Hebrew, the Holy Spirit is always referred to as a she, because there's neither male nor female in heaven. So we're talking about masculine, feminine energy, which people argue about when somebody brings out an ankh. Oh my goodness, how dare you bring out an ankh? Well, the ankh is just talking about masculine, feminine energy. Ruach HaKodesh. We can talk about that later. I really got to get ready to take my leave from you all, though. And so thank you for being on. Thank you for listening to us talk about the belief system. Those that are on YouTube, all the stuff that I'm about to mention, it'll be down there in the description box. And also, classes are coming up October 11th. Mondays are going to be marriage. Tuesday's going to be on monarchy. Wednesday's going to be on sovereignty. Thursdays are going to be on natural medicine 1. Fridays on fibroid cyst. Saturdays on Hebrew characters. We're asking for $90 donation minimum per class. That'll be two months straight of class. And for more information, just contact us at the information below. Also, too, for those that are in, we're going to do this in different areas. So for those of you that are in, like Georgia, I say Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Maybe some people want to do from Kentucky, but we're kind of stretching it there. We're going to look at doing a baptism at some point, probably South Carolina-ish. And so if you're interested in doing that, we're kicking around the idea. We have some people searching up some things, and we're looking at doing some stuff, and we're going to have some conversations with my wife, I and some others. So if you're interested in joining us for that, it'll be in South Carolina. If you want to travel from somewhere else, you can, but obviously travel, expense, short amount of time, it might not be feasible for everybody. We're going to try and do it in different areas. So we're going to start off in that area, probably then do like the Northeast, probably start going to then probably go maybe to Illinois type area, Indiana type area, and then maybe even do Texas, and then we'll see if we can go further west after that. So just letting you guys know that's something that's up. If you guys want to know about that or want to know more information, just reach it at the information below if you're on YouTube. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.